Hey guys, let's do something fun! Like murder. Hello bookworms, welcome back to my channel and to another list video. Now this video is not for the faint of hearts because this time I will list the 10 most brutal, gruesome, disturbing scenes I have ever read. I'm still not sure how exactly I'm going to title this video. I have many adjectives in mind, but the idea is to take the scenes that gave me the most visceral reactions. Some are classically frightening, some are psychologically disturbing, and some are just very violent. And of course, it's a matter of taste. I bet there are some obvious contenders that will not be mentioned, like a certain execution scene from a Stephen King novel. And you might also disagree with some of the choices I did decide to put here. So the way I'm going to do this, because there will be spoilers and trigger warnings, is the following. With each entry, I will first give it a title that will give you an idea and then the book's name, so that if you don't want to know, you can just skip ahead. I will put timestamps in the description box, if I can remember. So let's begin with the obligatory Stephen King scenes. So at number 1 we have the foot scene from Misery, as mentioned by Stephen King. Even if you haven't read the book, I'm pretty sure you've heard of this one, especially because the movie version is so famous, but it is not as brutal as the one in the book. Misery follows Paul Sheldon, an author who is basically held hostage in the isolated house of Annie Wilkes, an unstable woman who claims to be his biggest fan, and becomes his jailer until he agrees to change the ending of his latest book. And after he tries to escape, Annie decides to punish Paul. She ties him to the bed, takes an axe, and chops off his foot. There's something about the book's contained environment and the unhinged atmosphere created by Annie that makes this scene so brutal. Paul is so helpless against this woman, both physically and by the fact that she can lose her temper at the smallest things. You can't even negotiate with her because her logic does not make sense. Both us, the readers, and Paul know that she will not let him go. He has to rescue himself. But this act of utter violence from Annie just makes us both cringe at the pain and lose hope for Paul. Next, I have a scene from a recent read, though not a recent book, and that is the dentist scene from Marathon Man by William Goldman. Like Misery, Marathon Man has a really famous movie adaptation, but I haven't seen it yet, so I can't comment regarding similarities. Marathon Man is about a young college student called Tom who finds himself involved in a conspiracy with Nazis and stolen diamonds. And in this horrific scene, Tom is caught and interrogated. He does not have the information they want, but the problem is that they don't believe him. After trying to explain and giving different answers to their questions, both Tom and the readers realize that he is screwed. That unless he does something risky and creative, he will not survive. And then the dentist interrogator starts working on Tom. And trust me when I say that we feel his pain as the dentist drills into his teeth, applying just the right amount of pressure to cause severe pain, but leave Tom conscious. The book has a rather lighthearted atmosphere thanks to Tom's cheery personality until this moment. This book is a masterpiece of using the right words to describe pain and helplessness, and I reviewed it recently, so make sure to check it out. I reviewed a bunch of books I'll mention here, and I will link them all in the description box. Now let's take a short break from physical torture and move to a horror moment in an otherwise non-horror kind of book. The possession scene in A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. This is a story of a family and its destruction as the older daughter starts showing signs of severe mental illness. The story is being told from the perspective of the younger daughter, who was 8 years old at the time and had limited understanding of what went on. All she knew is that her beloved sister changed and slowly turned to basically a monster. And the entire book is presented a little like a possession story, not only due to her symptoms resembling possession, but also an actual exorcism taking place, because who knows, maybe that's the solution. It isn't. Now, despite the devastating ending scene, I actually chose a different one for this list that really freaked me out. And in this scene, the older daughter wakes the younger one up in the middle of the night and acts possessed. It is a realistic book about a relatively realistic scenario, and just imagining being a child and having someone you love contorting and cursing and trying to kill you is just so frightening. The book is great, but also so bleak and depressing. It's not horror, but it is horrific. Next, let's move to a book that I really didn't like, but it had one really awful scene that made me like it even less. And this is the brutal animal killing scene from Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough. This underwhelming thriller does have two shocking moments. One of them is the very end, when we realize exactly who is behind everything and what that means for everything we just read. And the other one is when a character murders a cat. One of the book's protagonists is Adele, whose husband David has a history of cheating. Adele comes across like the perfect good-natured housewife, but we find out throughout the book that she's actually a vindictive, obsessive psycho. Enters Marianne and her cat Charlie. Marianne befriends David because she works near his office, and Adele starts suspecting they're having an affair. They aren't, by the way. She threatens both Marianne and her cat, and then she murders Charlie in front of Marianne. Now, this is rather gruesome, so beware. Adele is wearing high heels and she stomps the cat to death with those heels. This is disgusting beyond words and somewhat unexpected. The book isn't fluff and rainbows, but I didn't expect such a visceral scene in an otherwise run-of-the-mill book. By the way, in the Netflix show, they change it and the cat does survive. Next, we have the execution scene from Black Arts by Andrew Prentice and Jonathan Weil. This is a pretty cool young adult historical fantasy about a young thief called Jack in the late 16th century who finds out that London has a dark underbelly with demons and evil and black magic. The book itself is pretty tame, which is why I wasn't expecting anything too horrific, until one of Jack's friends is caught stealing. The friend, a part of a group Jack also belongs to, is scheduled to be executed. And he's as young as Jack. I forget, but I want to say like 14 years old. Surely they won't execute a child. Surely the gang will save him. Right? Wrong. The group attend the execution in order to pay respect. That's their code. And we have to read a scene where a child is being hanged. I don't know if that's the fact that he is so young, or the fact that he's killed for pickpocketing, or the fact that this scene was so unexpected, but this hits you really hard. Next, we have the well scene from Dolores Claiborne by Stephen King. Yes, we have another King novel here, and this isn't some gruesome horror, but a very underrated and very different story from King's usual style. In the book, Dolores, a wife and mother in a small town with simple country folk, discovers her disgusting husband has been molesting her teenage daughter. Fearing he will escalate and being sick and tired of this no-good trailer trash, Dolores decides to kill him. She tricks the husband, Joe, to step on a covered well on their property and lets him fall down, which will look like an accident. The problem is that Joe doesn't die immediately, and he calls out helplessly for Dolores, even waking her up in the middle of the night after she thinks he is already dead, and he's shouting and begging her to help him. Now, I know this isn't the most frightening thing ever, especially, when we talk about Stephen King, but living like Dolores with the knowledge of what she has done, knowing that Joe is dying in pain in the well alone, this was just so horrific. It literally gave me nightmares. Let me know if you read the book, if you also reacted this way to it as well. Next, we have the rape scene from A Time to Kill by John Grisham. Now, even if you've never heard of this book, I bet the title says it all. The book takes place in Mississippi in the 1980s, and it is about the trial of a black man called Carl Lee Haley, accused of the murder of two white good old boys, whom he shot to death after they raped and abused his 10-year-old girl. The book opens with a rape scene, and what I found the most shocking was the mundanity in which it's told. Things aren't explicit. Grisham uses words like they hurt her, but we know what they did. And the way these two monsters talk to and about her, like they were bored, so they decided to have some fun by doing these horrific things to this little child. The book deals a lot with themes of injustice toward the Black population in the South, and it is heartbreaking. But the opening scene in which two uneducated lowlives casually decide to torture and almost killed a child. They thought she was dead, by the way. Just showed how little they think of the worth of human life and dignity because she is Black. Now I'm going to be cheating a little bit because this isn't just one scene, but multiple child abuse scenes from A Child Called It by Dave Pelzer. What is worse than a story of a child being raped and left for dead? An autobiography of a child who was abused and tortured for years by his own mother. In this book, Dave tells us of his childhood with a mother who started out normal, but when he was still young started showing signs of mental illness and singled him out as her victim. She does horrible things to him, like denying basic necessities by not letting him shower, not feeding him enough, forcing him to sleep in a garage on the floor. But then comes the physical abuse, like hitting him, shoving his face into a dirty diaper, throwing a knife at him. And what stuck the most with me is locking him in the bathroom and putting inside a bucket of hot water and I think bleach. And the chemical reaction is toxic, and only luckily he doesn't suffocate to death. Sorry, but this reminded me of the gas chambers in the Nazi death camps. And people around him knew. Kids made fun of him because he stank, and the teachers saw that he stole food from other kids, and nothing was done. That happened in the 70s, but even today we hear of cases where after the child's death, people will say, "Oh, I saw him with dirty clothes, and he was so skinny, and I heard the parents yell at him," and they don't do anything. So let's just take a moment first to be thankful for Dave's survival, and also remember that if you see something, say something. Please. Okay guys, are you still with me? How are you holding up? Let's move on. Let's talk about another scene I feel might surprise some of you, and this is the grotesque opening scene, or the birth scene, from Perfume by Patrick Suskind. The full title of the book is Perfume, the Story of a Murderer, and it takes place in the 18th century. It's about an orphan called Jean-Baptiste Grenouille who has this superhuman sense of smell and decides to create the perfect perfume, the scent of a woman. And he does it by murdering women. Now, this is not some trashy horror book. It's fascinating and remarkably written. And one of the things that Suskind does best is just giving us a sense of how the scene smelled like. The book opens in a marketplace where a woman selling fish is giving birth, and it is disgusting. Suskind spends 2 pages just describing the stench of France, and more specifically Paris. The rotting food, the fish, the corpses, the body odor, the garbage. And into this filth, Grenouille was born, and the mother, who thought he will be stillborn like her other children, is decapitated as a punishment for apparent infanticide. This book is both disgusting and brilliant, and unless you have a very sensitive stomach, I really recommend it. And lastly, we have the acid attack scene from No One Gets Out Alive by Adam Neville. In this book, a young woman called Stephanie finds herself in a dire situation and has to rent a room in a dilapidated house owned by 2 really creepy guys. This is a twist on the haunted house genre because as much as we do have ghosts hunting the house, the real danger in the book comes from the flesh and blood humans. This book has a lot of hard-to-read sexual violence, and like many other books on this list, there are many scenes here I could have chosen, but when Stephanie is threatened with acid, things become real. Her landlord shows his real face really quickly and becomes more and more dangerous, and then he pulls out a bottle of acid, and it is terrifying. There's a later scene in the book of a more sexual attack, but I actually found the acid scene a lot scarier. It's the first time he actually physically attacks Stephanie, and the stakes here are so much higher. It was not an easy book to read, but it was a really good one. And those were the most gruesome, disturbing book scenes I did not block out from my memory. Guys, thank you for watching. I hope I did not traumatize you with any of these, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to click the like button and write me a comment below telling me of that one book scene that still haunts you. Again, guys, thank you for watching and goodbye. I am going to cuddle my cat now. See you next time.